Welcome to the ACT podcast, and today we are thinking about what it means to teach PE Christianly, where we're going to explore the unique opportunities and challenges of bringing faith into the world of physical education, or PE. Today we're joined by Joe Lowther, who is CEO of KICK, which is a ministry using sport and physical activity as, according to their website, a tool for transformation in schools and communities. So we'll be thinking a bit more about KICK as a ministry, talking about what it means to teach PE as a Christian and how to model Christ-like character through sport, and the different ways that PE can be a space for mentoring, for character building, and potentially even sharing the gospel. So, Joe, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you, what you do, where you are, and about KICK itself.
Thank you so much for having me, Lizzie. It's fantastic to be here, and real honour. My name is Joe Lowther. I'm married to Laura. We have three sons: Theo, who's 15, Seth, who's 12, and Joshua, who's 9. I was formerly a principal of an outstanding school in Tower Hamlets, and then I felt called out of that and into mission, which I resisted for a year, but in the end, God persuaded me otherwise, and I've been thrilled to, across the last 10 years, join a missional Christian organization called KICK, whose mission it is to transform young people's lives with God's love through sport and support. And so we go into schools delivering physical education, street dance, mentoring, and chaplaincy. And then we partner with local churches to enable them to run sports ministry of them on their own, which are called KICK Academies. And those happen in the community in the evenings or at the weekends at a time which is complementary rather than in conflict to when church happens. We're so disappointed to hear that you're now 7 times more likely to be playing sport on a Sunday than going to church in the UK as a child or young person. And so that's something we want to change and give children and young people sport and church on a Sunday. So those things inspire us to do what we do. And today we work with 30,499 children and young people across the UK.
Wow. I'm very impressed for 2 reasons. One, that you work with that many children, and 2, that you know precisely how many children you work with.
It's important to know the numbers. Yeah, I know it's silly, but yeah, we get those numbers every 2 months. And we are chuffed to work with any and every child or young person that we serve. Those are things that really matter to us, and we're pleased about.
And before we dive into the nature of the work and some of the overarching questions and themes, where does KICK have a role? Is it centered around a particular area of the UK? Is it across the UK?
So our work was founded by a local church, Holy Trinity Richmond, in Richmond-upon-Thames, southwest London. It then grew to be in 6 boroughs of London. And that's about the time I joined, when we had 7 people. Today we have 97. So it's grown and expanded right across London first. So we're in 28 boroughs in London. But then post-pandemic, we made a brave decision to go national. So we went to the West Midlands, East Midlands, and East of England, and then further up to the Northwest and Northeast as we started our journey to the 15 regions of the UK across the next 15 years. And so we are 4 years into this 15-year vision, and very excited to now be in 8 regions of the UK. We've just started work in the South and Southeast. Very proud to be there. And we're in 107 schools total at present, with 40 KICK academies up and down the country. So we're as far north as Newcastle and as far south as Plymouth. So there's a bit of range there in terms of where we are.
Absolutely. And so just tell us about the kind of mechanism. What do you train up sort of teachers or coaches? Is it a bit like, I know at my kids' school, they have an outside agency that comes in to deliver PE lessons. Is that effectively what you guys do?
That's right. 90% of primary schools will be bringing in external providers, often for-profit private companies that will come in and chuck a minimum wage coach into a school and shave off for shareholders. We're a not-for-profit organization, so we care more about impact than we do about income. And so our model is to go into schools and provide coaches to coach sport and dance, mentors to provide solutions-focused mentoring and behavior support, as well as chaplains to go that a little bit further around the Christian ethos of a particular school. And those are exciting opportunities. We don't provide teachers to schools, but actually I think that's a powerful dynamic for us, because coaching and teaching are different pedagogical approaches. And I believe that we can provide a point of difference and innovation actually to a school where we provide coaches, mentors, or chaplains that are slightly unusual and unique to what the children might otherwise experience from teachers.
Okay, so that's interesting. So I'm very interested. Obviously, you are a head teacher. Was that in a primary school or a secondary?
That was in an AP, alternative education provider.
Okay, great.
Worked with 14 to 23-year-olds. So we had 80 Key Stage 4 learners, 450 NEET young unemployed 16 to 18-year-olds. Then we had 150 young unemployed 19 to 24-year-olds. And then we'd place 250 into apprenticeships in Canary Wharf, because we were based in East London. And so that was a really exciting provision. We had 100% FSM. We had 80% SEND profiles. These were the kids that were expelled or dropped out of mainstream education. They came to us as an alternative provision. And we reduced the NEET population, those not in education, employment, or training, from 16% to 4.7%. And so that was a real joy for us to bring that kind of transformational educational change over a 9-year period in Tower Hamlets. And again, we were very proud of that work back then. But yeah, that was a bit about my background. I'm a qualified teacher. I specialized in an unusual subject of employability and media studies. Again, an unusual topic, I know, but yeah, built on those principles and applied them. And one of the things that, again, I guess I'm quite excited by is not just formal education models, but informal education models, and how we can bring a bit of informal education, such as mentoring and chaplaincy, to a formal education context, such as a school. And I've seen that make a big impact and difference, where you can just have a bit of variety and diversity as to how education is delivered in a school context.
Absolutely. And I think we see that diversity of mode, as you say, pedagogical intent, much more today. And I see it in my own children's school. So you said, so you left the sector as a school leader and you decided to go into mission, as you call it, which is really exciting. And I love the fact that you view what you do as missional. You obviously see, even though I take it you weren't trained as a PE teacher, you obviously see that PE can be, or physical education, physical activity, sport can be a really crucial tool for transformation. Why do you think that is?
A few points there. I wouldn't say I left the sector personally. I would say as a head teacher, I got to, if you like, interact with my school colleagues. But now as a CEO of KIG, I get to work with 107 head teachers right across our work. And so that's been something that has been really thrilling, actually, is to make a difference in education from an unusual angle. And so that's been something that I've seen helpful. I think when I was pondering taking the role, I thought about KIG and I thought, ooh, sport, mission, education. And I thought, I've been trained in education, I believe in mission, and I really love sport. I always had a passion for it. I played it lots. And so I thought, oh, this could be really exciting. And I thought, maybe I should drop them an email. And then I thought, it's Good Friday. No one will be in the office. I'll message them after the long bank holiday weekend on Tuesday. So I sat down on Good Friday to watch, as some of us might do. I know it's not theologically perfect, but I sometimes watch The Passion of Christ, the movie, as any former film student might do. And it sometimes just gets me in the zone. And as I was watching this film, I get up to grab a drinks break and I check my phone. And the chair of Kick had emailed me saying, our director resigned yesterday to go and become a vicar. The board had met that morning to discuss closing down the organisation. And whilst they were praying, would I ever consider coming to join Kick and to lead it instead? I couldn't believe it. I said, I was about to email you. So we went through a process and I joined the organisation in November 2014. But what was just lovely about that whole process was I knew God had woven that situation together good. There was no other way of explaining that. And I knew that I'd been called to come to Kick to make a difference. And so when I came with a love for sport, an understanding of education, and a belief in mission that we want to transform young people's lives, that 1 in 3 15-year-olds identifying with a mental health condition is not great. 95% of children and young people not in church in the UK is not good. And that, I don't know if you knew this, but 60% of terror offences committed in the UK last year were by under 20-year-olds. So children and young people are most likely to commit a terror offence in the UK. These are problems that require transformation. They require mission. They require excellent education. And if we can use sport as a healthy way of enabling children and young people to express themselves in different ways, more positive ways, we'd love to see that happen. So at Kick, we have designed a values-driven approach to the way we deliver physical education to national curriculum. Every lesson we coach has an embedded, what we call Kick value. Of those dozen values we look at, 9 of them are the fruits of the Spirit from Galatians 5. And we just so added hope, integrity, and perseverance as additional values. They all have a Christian foundation, each of the values that we are coaching, but they can be applied in a secular community school context if necessary. But where we are in Church of England or Roman Catholic schools, they often really encourage us to talk about our faith and underline the Kick value as a Christian value. So that's a way that we can utilize physical education to embed a Christian value and then apply a coaching model to express that. So for example, if I give you an example around perseverance, we look at perseverance in January. It is a cold, dark month, and we try and embed that value in the learners in that particular month because it's not easy. Christmas is gone, it's freezing cold, it's windy, etc. And then each week of that month, we'll try and embed a behavior of what it means to persevere, to build greater depth of understanding about that particular value of the month. And so that is a way that we can embed Christian values through physical education that can lead to a transformational difference. They can do that in 3 different ways. The personal development of the individual as they feel more confident and optimistic about themselves, as they get those endorphins running in physical education, but also a social impact as that builds a bit of social connection as they work as a team, represent their school, take responsibility to captain. And thirdly, spiritual change as we embed that kind of Christian value and introduce faith to help children and young people make an informed decision about what Christianity looks like and means, what the character of God is. But also for those that are Christians, help them become more confident in their own beliefs as they see other Christian coaches delivering services in their schools. So as I say, there's a range of different ways there.
Sure. So I wonder if I can just press you a bit on the values-based curriculum that
Course.
you use. I think that's really interesting. And I think many schools, whether they have a Christian character or not, will have some kind of school values that they try to embed and try to make more of. How at Kick, having that distinctive Christian character, how do you ensure that you're not just sprinkling a few Christian values of endurance or I don't know,
Yeah.
faithfulness? How do you ensure that there's something that has a deeper kind of underpinning that is related to the person of Christ? This isn't trying to trip you up. I'm just wondering if that
No,
is possible.
so we believe missionally in a 4D approach. We seek to demonstrate God's love through values in schools. Then in the Kick Academies, we train up local people from local churches to run sports ministry with local young people. We seek to declare the gospel and help young people make a decision about who Jesus is for themselves, so that if they'd like to, they can then be discipled for a lifetime by local churches.
Mm.
And so this 4D approach spreads across our work. And as I say, we seek to demonstrate God's love in the schools through the values-driven PE. What's been fascinating is we've been doing this for 20 years, and more recently, meaningful PE is a new concept that we've really been delivering for quite a while. And so I'm quite encouraged, actually, that others are seeing the opportunity of PE to be meaningful, not just physical, but meaningful around character and value formation.
Sure.
Also find is that if you get character right, competency often follows. And so young people can genuinely be more effective in their education if we deliver brilliant and meaningful PE in a school. I'm always moved by this, that in private schools, they deliver 10 hours, up to 10 hours of PE a week compared to the mandatory 2 hours in a state context. And why is that? If you get the physical right, often the mental follows. And so again, that is something that we would love to see more of. But other ways that we seek to bring Christ into our schools, for example, in our street dance context, we have a bespoke scheme of work around the 40 parables in the Bible,
Wow.
beautifully, one for every academic week of the year. And that can build into a performance piece of the prodigal son, lost sheep, and good Samaritan as a performance piece, a choreographed performance piece. And I got to tell you, when I saw our dance coaches deliver that for the first time, I was just amazed. Seeing children and young people share the gospel of through the parable of the lost sheep, for example, or the prodigal son, was as a piece of musical theatre to likely unchurched parents and carers. That was just so amazing to see. And so really, look, we're guests of the head teacher. It's their house, their rules. We're not looking to come in and corrupt the ethos of their school that they'd like. If they'd like a Christian value application, or for us to go further, for us perhaps to deliver chaplaincy in a school, wonderful. But if not, that's okay. We'll deliver values-driven PE, make it meaningful, and be salt and light in those environments. But the Kick Academy is a great opportunity locally for us to therefore then be doing declaration, decision, and discipleship with local churches. And we have 40 of these across the UK that deliver these on a weekly basis. So again, we want to see more of that taking place.
Sure. And I think that's a brilliant reminder that actually that kind of that long call, that discipleship work can only really properly take place in a local church where the
We're not
family
trying to impress those guys. We
yeah,
want them in church, and
yeah,
they'd like to be. And all we can do is provide strong role models that speak well of these things and welcome them. And it's their choice. Somebody said, heard me the other week, they said, there are no grandchildren in the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
only direct sons and daughters. And even for my three boys and your two kids, Lizzie, we can't force them into the kingdom of God. They have to choose themselves. So to give win some opportunities for people to explore these things is important to us. And that's what we're seeking to do.
Yeah. So I want to dig a bit deeper into physical education and the physical realm. So it's really interesting. You highlighted just how important PE, physical activity, and all that entails, not just the activity, but something about, I guess, the camaraderie or the competition. What is it about the physical realm that can be so transformative? And what does that say theologically, do you think, about us and about God?
Yeah. I think there are some wonderful images of sport in the Bible. Absolutely wonderful. I was reading Graham Daniels' new book, a fantastic book from Christians in Sport recently about the, the sporting analogies from Scripture. And Jesus was a carpenter. He was a physical person.
Mm.
I'm sure he was an athlete. He had to be very strong to do his job. And Paul talks about running the race with perseverance. He talks about beating his body like a boxer for his faith. He talks about becoming all things to all men so that by some means he might save some. And so these images are important and good for us to adapt to. You may or may not know this, Lizzie, but a third of professional football clubs in the UK were founded by local churches. It's why my team, Manchester United, are sadly called the Red Devils because Manchester City were founded by the Christians.
No, is that right?
Yeah, Everton, Liverpool, Tottenham. It's why Southampton are called the Saints because they were founded by a local church, St. Mary's, who their stadium is named after. So there are just a range of interesting examples. Bolton Wanderers, there are many in there. And those guys were founded by churches. Now, these churches wanted to provide an alternative to what many young men were experiencing in slums. They were getting blind drunk regularly at the end of their working week. If they had a reason to get up and play sport rather than get blind drunk, that was something that interested churches. And that was felt that on a Saturday afternoon or morning, that could be a good alternative for them to then make sure they could come to church on a Sunday.
Mm.
And Aston Villa, who were founded by a local church, they founded the Football League. The FA was founded at a local church over 100 years ago. And so again, that's something we can be very proud of as a country, that and as Christians, that we were so heavily involved in helping as a social response and crucially a missional and evangelistic response to a real genuine problem for families, that young men were getting a bit out of control, to give them a positive focus of sport instead of alcoholism was important. And we should continue to utilize sport for positive good in the UK, I think.
I think that's absolutely right. And I had no idea of that legacy. And that's really interesting. I think I'm going to have to go away and do a bit more reading about that because it's just so inspiring that, as you say, perhaps vulnerable or beleaguered men who had been doing hard graft all week felt that they needed an outlet. And actually, that was something that the church could speak into and help to use transformatively.
In this time of toxic masculinity and every man is toxic, which would be a real shame if half of the world were all toxic. We're all sinful, but toxic. We should have positive outlets, absolutely, for men as well as women. And these things are important. But yeah, it was just something that moved me. Those were things that can be forgotten about. We can forget that Christians founded government in the UK.
Yeah.
In between the houses of House of Commons and the House of Lords in the Houses of Parliament is a verse from the Psalms which says, "Unless the Lord builds the house, the laborers labor in vain." We can forget that schools in themselves were founded by churches and given most of them back to government to run as mainstream schools that we know of today. These are works of the church over many years, and Kick is just another expression of a work by the church to make a difference. And these, we would love to meet more schools and serve more teachers and children and young people ultimately in the work that we do today. And God has been building his church. It's thy kingdom come, isn't it? Not anybody else's. And he builds one body. And so however we can work together for the sake of children and young people, we're keen to do that.
Amen. Absolutely. I just wanted to dive a little deeper into perhaps some of these problems that Kick's ministry and physical not just physical education, but that kind of physical outlet that has that Christian underpinning can seek to speak into. You mentioned that, was it 60% of those that are involved in terror activities are under the age of 20. You also mentioned problems with toxic masculinity. We know that there's an immense amount of social, emotional problems, as well as things like special educational needs and poverty. Can you explain perhaps a little bit about how Kick works with young people to try and circumnavigate some of the outcomes of those problems? And have you got any particularly inspirational stories that would be an encouragement for us to hear?
Absolutely. Look, if we take self-harm, 1 in 5 young people now self-harm in the UK, according to UNICEF. I mean, that is really, really sad. And an inspirational story from one of our mentors shared with me recently. She said, "Look," he said, "Sorry, look, the rugby team captain, revered across the school as being intensely brave. He would throw himself into rucks, smash into those with all that he had, and people would say, 'Cool, you got concussed last week. How are you coping? Amazing what you're doing.'" But he was referred to our mentor because his best friend had committed suicide a year previous. And he, after building trust, confided in that mentor that he viewed rugby as his opportunity to self-harm. He was smashing into those rocks as hard as he could because he felt it was unfair that he was alive and his best friend wasn't. And so it was such a privileged opportunity for us to say to him, "Listen, do you think your best friend would be delighted that you were self-harming in this way? Would he be really pleased? Or in fact, would he encourage you not to do this as your good friend?" And to walk on that journey with that guy, and he still plays rugby hard, but he's chosen to calm down a bit. And that's been something we've been really pleased with as an intravenous impact upon his life. If I think of obesity rates, obesity there was projected to reach 50% of the population of the UK. Unfortunately, it's now going to be projected to 61%. So this is getting worse. And often we know with lockdown that caused greater health inequalities for children and young people from disadvantaged homes. And so again, this is a really important opportunity for us to be delivering. And we deliver 256 after school clubs a week that keep children and young people physically fit and active in a way that they might not otherwise be at home. They might just be sat there eating fried chicken, playing computer games. And so again, how do we be proactive in that? I don't know if you know this, Lizzie, the most dangerous time for a child or young person in the UK, what is the most dangerous time in the week?
After school? I don't know. Before bed?
Before bed? You might think Saturday night, Friday night. What is it? It's 3 till 6, Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
Straight after school. And so if we can provide diversionary activities for children and young people in those times, as well as holiday periods that keep them physically fit and active, we free them from all kinds of opportunity for risky behaviors. And that is something that it's underestimated how much we process our mental health through our physical health. What is the number one recommendation by GPs for those suffering with depression? Running. That just is something about it. If we get our physical, we are all interconnected. It's why God says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength. Because if we do those things well, it fits well with our mind and our body and our whole soul. And so again, physical activity is very important and is something that we are really keen to help children and young people encounter.
That's I think that's a really good point. I think I know from my perspective, personally, I have to do exercise almost every day. I walk every day, but I have to run about 3 times a week. Otherwise, I just can't cope with the daily demands of life, and I get to process things well when I'm running. But I also, my husband and I have made it. This isn't to say that we win the accolades for being best parents, but knowing that we make our children walk a mile to school and a mile back from school every day, because
Really?
I think it's really important. And we'll often go to the park as well on the way home, but I've just found that time is important for us to process, to talk to each other. But it just means I know they're getting some physical activity, or we'll go out on the bikes or bike to school, but usually walk. And I've found it to be really beneficial. And it also means it's less time that they have, not that we really use screens very much, but it's less time that they could be on a screen or watching TV, more time that they're moving their body. And I do think, and although this isn't directly related, I know that the author Jonathan Haidt says that actually because we are more sedentary and not doing as much kind of physical exploration, children have reverted to an online world. It just means that they're not getting the same opportunities to, I don't know, negotiate, or perhaps do sports where you've got to, test all those social skills as well as the skill, use the game skills that are necessary. So it's, so I love the fact we are embodied souls, and it's a very holistic way of looking at it. I know time is short. I wonder whether, could you just perhaps give us just maybe 1 or 2 points as we finish, something that perhaps you can say of encouragement to PE teachers? Because although you have a particular ministry, which is coaching, is there anything you'd say to PE teachers, those that are Christians? What opportunities are there for Christian teachers who may not necessarily be a part of a kick ministry, but are still trying to be faithful?
We coach PE in schools. So it's just that we don't provide qualified teachers, but we coach PE in schools. So again, I would say to anybody delivering PE, coach or teacher, whatever the background is, you have honestly the most important job in a school. Aside from the head teachers and the SEND, I'd really say that if you can deliver your job well, you enable each child and young person to learn English, maths, science. You are providing a subject that often those that really struggle in those other subjects long for in the week. Often there'll be people that really see physical education as Marmite. They love it or they hate it. Don't worry about that. Remember, those that love it are likely to be those that really hate every other subject in that school. And so hang in there and remember the joy and the relief that you bring to a number of children in your school. And thank you for doing it. And we pray God's blessing upon you, because what you're doing is very important.
Absolutely. And just a really quick shout out. I had a PE teacher at secondary school who was a Christian, and she really me, and I don't think she realises how much. She was called Miss McDowell at the time. I think she's married now. But yeah, she was a great encouragement to me. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Joe. I really appreciate your time. I know you've got to hop off now, but bless you. How can we find out more about Kick?
Our website, www.kick.org.uk. That's www.kick.org.uk. Very simple. And if you are a teacher or in senior leadership, we would love to have a conversation with you about ways we could serve in your school, be it physical, mental, or spiritual, across any of our services. So thank you so much for time with you today, Lizzie. I've really enjoyed it. And thank you to all those that are being Christian ambassadors in schools. We are sojourners of this world, but it's good to make a difference in the environments we live and work in. And please keep doing all you can.
Absolutely. Thanks, Joe.